What is going on, guys? Detroit Lions News Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Chap. Tyler will be with us in a second. He's dealing with some technical difficulties. That's why he got a late start today. But if you're new to the podcast, you can go on Spotify, Apple, any of those podcast platforms, and you can find the Detroit Lions News Podcast. I'm glad to have you guys around. Obviously, we have a huge game coming up this week against the LA Rams, and it's Stafford Mania. And I've kind of been accustomed to. I posted something on the Between the Whistles page, and the one thing I heard from was Kelly Stafford fans. So there are people that are Kelly Stafford fans. So just keep that in mind. Um, we got a loaded show today. Obviously, we're gonna do a two-part show today, and then we're gonna do one probably Saturday. I think I'm pretty sure Tyler knows that we're gonna do one Saturday or Sunday, depending on what you guys want before the game or whatever. Um, there's a lot to get to. Obviously, I think a lot of people watched last night's podcast with Darcy and them, and you're wondering, we had John on and Matt Derry on and Walter on, and it was a great podcast. But the one thing that I kept saying that a lot of people weren't kind of accustomed to, I don't know if you know this, but when the Rams are held under 100 yards rushing, they're 2-5. When Kyren Williams is held under 100 yards, they usually lose. Now they were 3-3, but the three wins they were against were the Giants. There's a couple other teams. They kind of struggled a little bit. But that's the key to beating this team. And if you look at the Lions running backs, who they've played, and who they played some really good running backs. You look at Tony Pollard, 49 yards. You look at Kamara, 51 yards. You look at Jacobs, 61 yards. Gus Edwards, 64 yards. Rachaad White, he's having a great year, 26 yards. Aaron Jones, 18 yards. Pacheco, 23 yards. Kenneth Walker, 12 yards. Look, this is a key part of the game for the Detroit Lions this coming weekend, is stopping the run. Because if you can stop the run against this LA Rams team, what's going to happen is you are going to make that offense one-dimensional. And a lot of times what the LA Rams do is they predicate their offense off play action. And the reason that Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua and all these guys are getting open downfield is because these safeties are going to have to look into the backfield and see if Kyren Williams is coming. Because Kyren Williams has been an outstanding player since he came back from his injury. I mean, I think he's averaging close to 100 yards a game and a touchdown a game. He's a great player. But the one thing that the Detroit Lions have shown all year long is you don't run for 100 on this Detroit Lions team. You just don't. And when we look at this team, there's a lot to get to. We're going to get to it all. But first, let's start with the news and notes of the day. Here's the interview tracker. Ben Johnson, Commanders, Chargers, Panthers, Titans, Falcons. Then you got Aaron Glenn. Commanders, Chargers, Falcons, Titans. And then your cap guy, Mike Disner, he has an interview pending with the Carolina Panthers. So all in all, there's a lot of people that want Detroit people. Aaron Glenn, I was reading a report from Ian Rappaport, where I was watching the McAfee show, and I seen Ian Rappaport say that, a guy like Aaron Glenn is going to be a hot commodity come the coaching carousel. And I don't think that the coaching carousel is done. I think there's going to be a couple more coaches probably gone, especially the way if this weekend goes and the Eagles lose or the Cowboys lose, I could see them making a move. But this present time, there's a lot of teams that are looking for a coach. It could get worse or it can get better. Now, if you were privy to, the injury report did come out for the Detroit Lions. I did not put this on, but I'm gonna get it on whenever Tyler gets back on. But so let me just read it for you. Let's look at it. All right. So the injury report was like this: Teddy Bridgewater, he had no practice. He was obviously it was a kind of like a rest day. Jerry Jacobs, no practice. Sam Laporta, no practice. Khalif Raymond, no practice. But the good news about Sam Laporta is it seems like he is trending towards playing on Sunday. And we talked about it, I think the podcast yesterday, the Lions guys, they talked about yesterday about how big Sam Laporta would be. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think you got Amon-Ra St. Brown. We're going to get into why I think this matchup is it's ideal for the Lions. And I think there's two players that could really show out on Sunday. But we'll get to that. You also had James Mitchell limited practice. Everyone else was full practice participants. So that's good to see. Guys like Brian Branch and all those guys that were, they're in an injury report, but they were full practice participants. So that is good. Now, as we look forward, I obviously want your comments and if you have any opinions on the matter, you can put them down below and we can talk about whatever you guys want. I think Sunday, we will have on Sunday we will have where you can kind of give your opinion before the big game. So I might have Walt on. I might have Ashanti, maybe Tyler. There's gonna be a full cast of characters, and we'll kind of break down the game before the game. So we'll talk about that. But all in all, this game sets up pretty good for the Detroit Lions come Sunday night. Well, let's get into it. So here is the offense. The offensive comparisons. Obviously, you have total yards. Both offenses are top 10 in total yards. Passing, they're both top 10 in passing. Both top 15 in the run game. Both top 10 in points. These teams mirror each other. They really do. I mean, I think the only thing that the Rams offense is better at is third down percentage, and it's not that big of a gap. When you look on the defensive side of the ball, obviously the Rams are just a little bit better in total yards. They're a little bit better in passing yards. They're a lot, Detroit's a lot better in the rushing yards department. But, you look at it and you go, these teams ironically do mirror each other. So you're asking me, what is something that I look at? Like, what is my concern level going into Sunday? And I know there's a lot of people out there that are saying, like, the concern level is huge and all that. The concern level for me is pretty simple. It's pretty simple. I'm not really concerned about Sunday. I'm not. I feel like this is the best case scenario for the Detroit Lions. Now, if they were playing the Green Bay Packers, I'd be a little bit more worried than I am with the Rams, because I do respect that front seven, and as much of a head case as Quay Walker is, as much as a head case as he is, he's a great player, and they got guys like Rashawn Gary, and they got guys like Kenny Clark when he's healthy. Them going down to Dallas is probably Dallas's worst fear, because they're physical, they're tough. I told people that defense is going to be pretty damn good, and Jordan Love's starting to turn it on. So when you talked about, did I want the Packers, did I want the Rams, I'd rather have the Rams, because there's kind of a, if you look at their stats and you look at the way that they've kind of went about games the past couple games, there's a way that you can beat the LA Rams. There's a key identifying way that you can beat the Rams. It's not any different. It's not any different. So that's what I look at with this team. I think that this could be this LA Rams team. They are beatable in every stretch of the imagination. Let's look at it. All right. So again. Oh my god. So let's get to my mismatches to exploit. Here's the mismatches I look at. I look at Lee McNeil versus Coleman Shelton. I think that's Coleman Shelton's their center. He has struggled against the upper echelon centers in the league. Aiden Hutchinson versus the Rams tackles. Rams tackles allows 10 sacks, highest on the team. So their tackles allow the most sacks. And then the Rams cornerbacks versus Amon-Ra St. Brown. Rams cornerbacks allow over 10 yards plus yards after the catch per catch. If there's a spot in this game where I'm like, okay, the Lions can totally exploit the LA Rams here. It's the cornerbacks on the LA Rams, because unlike Detroit, we talk about the pass game, the pass defense with the Detroit Lions. We talk about the pass defense and how it's not that great, but the one thing you can say about the Detroit Lions pass defense is they make the tackles. When a player gets a catch, they make the tackles. On the other side, the Rams, this is where they're going to be a little bit. They're going against a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown, who routinely gets yards after the catch. If Sam Laporta is playing, he gets yards after the catch. And if there was ever a game that you needed JMO, he can get yards after the catch. Because a lot of those cornerbacks on the LA Rams struggle to make the tackle after the catch. Now we have a comment. Why the hesitation for our fans? This is from Steve and Tracy Shearer. The Rams have to be worried about us. We're the hot team. I would disagree for this portion. Okay, LA is hot. They're really hot, and they turned it on. But if you look at their schedule and you look at the teams that they've played, when you look at those teams, you go, which one of these teams do I really respect that they're beating? Which one of these teams do I respect that they're beating? And there hasn't been one. Maybe Cleveland. That was a convincing win. That was pretty nice. But again, Cleveland, do they have a quarterback? I think that they beat Cleveland before Joe Flacco. So it's very interesting to kind of put those into perspective. But it'll be interesting Sunday, because when you look at these mismatches that you can exploit and the way that these two teams break down, it's kind of familiar with each other. Like we were talking about it. The offenses are kind of mirroring each other. The defenses are kind of mirroring each other. And you're looking at offense right now if you're on YouTube, Facebook Live. And then the defense, they mirror each other. So that's what you gotta look at with these two teams, with the LA Rams and the Detroit Lions. Let's see. There's a couple of slides that I had. Man, there's a couple of slides that I had that are missing, so I want to get. Yeah, that's so. Let me just try to get these slides up real quick. So yeah, okay. I'm just gonna try to get these slides up, but that'll take too long. So I was talking about the mismatches to exploit Lee McNeil versus Coleman Shelton. These are matchups that you can exploit. I do feel like there are mismatches that the Lions can exploit. So, I see we got 21 people watching right now on the Facebook Live and on the X and on the YouTube. But the one thing that I kind of, we're gonna go live on the game day. I just want to reiterate this: we're gonna go live on game day. We'll also podcast it. Either if we do a Saturday one, we'll podcast it for you guys. If not, we'll do the live on there. But yeah, this game really is going to come down to the Detroit Lions stopping the run, which is my opinion. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in this game. But when you talk about this Detroit Lions team, they've been able to stop the run. So, but let's see. Obviously, we gave you the injury updates, the news, the keys to the game. Here's the keys to the game. And I've laid them out here with the mismatches to exploit. Obviously, you look at Liam. I just talked about this a little bit. But if there is a mismatch, a key to the game for this Detroit Lions team and how they're going to run things, I think the biggest thing, and this is going to be tomorrow, we're going to get a clearer picture on what this team is going to look like come Sunday. By Sunday, we should get to look at what this team looks like tomorrow, because the injury report's going to come out. We're going to see who's going to be active, who's going to be questionable, who's going to be doubtful, all those things. And I look at this and I go, okay, Aiden Hutchinson versus the Rams tackles. If James Houston can go, that's a huge uplifting to this Detroit Lions team. So, I'm putting this out there that the Rams tackles allow 10 sacks, collectively. That's the highest on the team for those guys. And I look at this like this. I look at Detroit can definitely take advantage. They can definitely take advantage of this team playing the way that they're playing. And I feel like the LA Rams, when they get off script, when Stafford gets off script, when Kyren Williams gets off script, they're not the same team. So that's what you got to look at with this team moving forward. As we go into Sunday, we're going to get a more clearer picture into what this game is going to look like. You're going to start to see maybe Sam Laporta's playing. Maybe James Houston's playing. I mean, there was a cryptic tweet by Jerry Jacobs saying, it's been real Detroit or something like that. I had these slides up. For people on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter or whatever, I had these slides and they're just gone. It's like the technical difficulties of technical difficulties. But if you're on a podcast, you're going to be like, what the hell are you talking about? Well, if you watch on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and whatever, you get the slides, which I will post on the main page too. We have 2 comments from people. Ray says, I think Sam is going to go. I do think he's going to go at this, especially with the practice reports that they had today, that he was doing drills. And then one of the players said that the media is ruining the competitive advantage, which the media is doing a pretty shitty job ruining the competitive advantage. But I think if you know anything about a hyperextended knee, Travis Kelce almost played week 1 with a hyperextended knee. He was back the next week. I feel like Sam Laporta getting hurt Sunday and the game being Sunday night probably was the best thing for the Detroit Lions, because if he was playing, if it was a Saturday night game on Peacock, I doubt he would be playing. I doubt he would be playing. That's just my kind of feel on it, because he's got a full week to rest and kind of recover from his injuries. But I think Sam is going to go too. Steve says, great show yesterday, the Lions guys. Be nice if Gibbs delivers a breakout game and goes off. I think, here's what I think. I think any of these running backs, if they can go off, that would be great for this team. I think that this is a huge it's a huge game, obviously. You're playing your first playoff home game at Ford Field in its history, and you got the shot, the chance, the opportunity to win a playoff game at home, something you haven't done since the early 90s. It's a huge game. And no matter who is the guy that goes off, no matter who the guy is that goes off, whoever is the guy that goes off, is it Jahmyr Gibbs? Is it Dave Montgomery? Is it J-Mo? Is it Amon-Ra St. Brown? Is it Josh Reynolds? Whoever goes off, this is going to be something that you look back on and you go, wow. Like even a guy like at Aiden Hutchinson, right? If Aiden Hutchinson gets 3 sacks and a forced fumble, that's kind of like your instant kind of legend thing. And I see Steve in the comment says kind of a game you can become a Detroit legend instantly. And if I'm a young player, let's say I'm Brian Branch, right? Because if you looked at the Pro Football Focus, I was very interested in hearing what the alignments would be with CJ Gardner Johnson back. I was very interested to see Ifeatu Melifonwu was playing a little bit of corner, a little bit of safety. He was playing in the box. But the one thing I looked at, who played the most in the slot? And it was Brian Branch. And one of the players on this team that is going to have the biggest impact in Sunday night's game is Brian Branch. He is going to have the opportunity to cover Cooper Kupp. And let's be honest here. Cooper Kupp is no easy guy to cover, but if there's a guy that I trust the most in that secondary, it's easily Brian Branch. Is it not? I think that if you were to say this guy's got to cover Cooper Kupp, who do you want on Cooper Kupp? I would probably go Brian Branch. You don't want Cameron Sutton on Cooper Kupp, you know? And I think that Ifeatu Melifonwu, I think he matches up pretty perfectly with Puka Nacua. Maybe you put CJ Gardner Johnson on Puka Nacua. But the fact of the matter is, if you can stop the run game, like I said earlier, stop the run game and make them one-dimensional, that's a key part. Joseph Austin says iffy on Puka. And that's the matchup that I keep saying. Yeah, that's the matchup I think. Iffy on Puka Nacua. That's the one I want. But I was very interested because when last week when Chauncey Gardner Johnson came back, right? I was kind of expecting, to be honest, some different snaps alignments. It feels like in that last game, to me, it felt like Aaron Glenn held some stuff back because he didn't want to show it on tape. I think that's what he did. When I was looking at the tape, there was a lot of stuff that was pretty vanilla to what Aaron Glenn does. There was a lot of different coverages that he's used before. I don't think he's going to use the same coverages. I don't think he's going to use that same coverage because what I was looking at, it was like, okay, he was kind of playing a base set with a little bit of mix-ups. But what I noticed when Aaron Glenn's on, he mixes coverage up. He'll have someone drop back and he'll have someone blitz, and that's usually when Aaron Glenn's at his best. But you got to kind of pick and choose when you're going to exploit that, because once it's on tape, it's on tape. And I think with these two coordinators being hot commodities right now, I mean this is a huge game for both coordinators. If you're being totally honest with yourself, I mean we talked about this yesterday on the podcast, the Lions guys, or the Streamcast, and Ben Johnson, he has 5 interviews. Aaron Glenn has 4 interviews. I think if these teams that are going to interview him, the Commanders, the Chargers, the Panthers, the Titans, the Falcons, if they're interviewing these guys, this is a great kind of showcase for the whole NFL. If Aaron Glenn, he's not on the Panthers radar. He's not on the Falcons. He's not on the Falcons radar. Or who's on? He's not on the Panthers radar. He has a good game. He could be on the Panthers radar. Or if you're Ben Johnson and let's say you want the job for the Chargers because you get to have Justin Herbert, this is a perfect opportunity to bolster yourself up as a top-notch candidate. Because there's a guy out there, Mike Vrabel, who is available. And I think we've seen Seattle come available. We've seen New England come available. It's going to be very interesting to see what coaches those guys go after. I mean, I was reading that maybe Seattle goes after Dan Quinn. I was reading maybe, the Patriots go after Vrabel. Be ideal. But if you're the teams that are kind of like in the middle, like the Chargers or the Commanders, I mean, the Commanders is a say what you want about the Commanders. it's a very good job because of the draft pick compensation that you're going to have. That's what I would look at. We got a comment from it says before the injury on special teams, I thought the Lions had an edge, but now I'm not sure. Who do you think is better on special teams? That's a very good question, Jennifer, because when we talk about special teams, I do think the Detroit Lions have the better special teams. Now think of it like this. Okay, you might lose Khalif Raymond this week, but Donovan Peoples-Jones has returned punts. They have a guy on the practice squad, Maurice Alexander, who was the USFL the punt returner of the year. And then you got to go when you look at special teams, you got to go through the whole kind of thing, right? So you look at kicker, who has the edge. I mean, you could say it's a draw, but the LA Rams are struggling with their kicker. We're not really struggling with their kicker. So he missed an extra point last week, but they have some legitimate kicking issues over there in LA. Then you look at punter. I think Jack Fox is a Pro Bowl punter right now. So that's a notch for the Detroit Lions. I think special team, they have one of the all-pro special teamer core guys in Jalen Reeves-Maybin. The Detroit Lions are fine on special teams. I think that this game really comes down to two things. I think it's Dan Campbell being aggressive and Sean McVay being conservative. These are two, if you look at it from the perspective I've looked at it, Sean McVay is kind of a more conservative head coach compared to Dan Campbell being a more aggressive coach. And I don't think, Sean McVay has these special teams to kind of, we're going to go kick this ball. We're going to try to pin you deep. I don't think they have that type of team. So if Sean McVay makes the mistake and he punts the ball and he tries to pin the team in deep in the end zone, and then you see it goes through the end zone, Detroit Lions get it at the 25. I think that's what's going to decide this game, if we're going to be completely honest. Steve, almost same recipe Jim used for Michigan. No big splash plays, shut down run. I love our chances if Stafford is not chucking bombs. Keep them tying field goals. Here's the thing about this Detroit Lions team. We always talk about the defense and how they've struggled. But if we look at the Detroit Lions defense in perspective, the Detroit Lions defense has been done pretty well. If you look at, they've held teams to 20 points the last couple weeks. They're doing a good job of just holding people down. Now they're not going to stop you. They're not going to be like the 85 Bears, where they're just going to stop you and you have no shot whatsoever, right? But they are going to have legitimate shots to beat you, and they're gonna play a bend don't break kind of system, and that's all you can ask for. I mean, let's just put it this way: in today's day and age, with the way that teams are playing, it's usually the better offense that wins in the playoffs. I mean, the Kansas City Chiefs, this is probably the best defense they've had since Patrick Mahomes has been there, but they've won 2 Super Bowls. The only place that you can kind of, I think the most important things when you get into the playoffs are running the ball, taking time of possession, which I'm confident the Lions can do, and limiting big plays. And one thing I can say about the Detroit Lions defense is there's been a couple big plays that they've given up, but for the most part, they kind of shut it down when they get inside the 30 of their own zone. So that's what I like to look at. Ted says, agreed. Also, we could use some turnovers in our favor. Look, that's one of the biggest things about this game Sunday. Do you get the turnovers? Do you force Matthew Stafford into throwing a bad pass? Do you get a fumble from Kyren Williams? I mean, these are some of the things that could shift the momentum. And if we all know Stafford, Stafford will throw he'll throw a couple of good balls, and then he'll throw one just you're like, what is he throwing to? That's been Stafford's MO his whole career. We know Stafford. They know Goff. I feel like Goff has progressed more as a pro than Stafford, but Stafford's a little bit older. He's just going to chuck it and rip it and grip it. But I feel like if the team that wins the turnover battle, they're going to win this game. I'm fully confident in that. Ray from the Detroit Lions podcast page. He says Stafford likes to fit the ball into tight windows. If we can go harder than usual and pick one or two of his passes, we will win. I feel like we could score on anyone. I do think that, look, I think if they can pick a pass from Stafford, we all know about Stafford. When he throws an interception, it could be a pick six. It could do something. I think that I think Stafford's got a little bit better at eliminating the pick six. I mean, you kind of take your chances with the pick six kind of thing. But I think if you can force one or two of his passes like that, like Ray said, I think that you're going to win this game no matter what. And I think you could open up the lead. I think the team that's going to win this game is going to open up a pretty decent lead, and they're gonna just jump out. And it's going to be because of a turnover or a sudden play, whether it's kick return, whether it's punt return, whether it's a huge fumble, big sack, something like that. That's the way these playoff games roll. We have Lions talk with bad guy. So he says, will Sutton step up? I've been waiting for Sutton to step up, to be honest. I'm kind of disappointed by Sutton, to be honest. He's having his worst year as a pro here. Imagine that. And I don't want to blame it all on him, but he's just not reading the ball correctly, if we're being honest. So I'm hoping with the playoffs coming, he kind of gets his head back into the fold, and they start making plays. And I think that if Sutton can step up, and then you bring back, you have Brian Branch, and if you have Brian Branch or you have something like that, that could be huge for this team. But yeah, we'll go there. Todd says, yes, sir. Been a Lions fan for I think the team is on page for all the fans. That's what it's all about. I agree. I think the Lions fit team. They're on mark with this team. I think this Detroit Lions team is doing a damn good job at recognizing what they have on the team. Right? They understand what they have on the team. They understand what the fan base really, really wants. And I think that's the biggest motivation for this Detroit Lions team. I'm not a fan of our second string cornerback that will cost us. Look, your second string cornerback was supposed to be Emmanuel Mosley. Just what it was. And it hasn't worked out. But you just look, at this time of the year, I told the guys yesterday on the Lions Guys podcast. I was like, look, what was I gonna do? We all expected Manuel Mosley to play, but he just hasn't been able to play. And that's what I think that's what Brad Holmes kind of relied on, and it just didn't happen. We got a troll in the building. Her name is Katie Wood, and yeah, no one wants to see your greetings. I will love to be in your circle of friends. Try to add me up. Cheers. See, this is what's happening, man. These spammers, like, at least if you're gonna be a spammer, be a little more cute. Lions win easy from Joseph Austin, the guy on YouTube. Yeah, I think the Lions can win this easily, and I think this is gonna be I think the Lions, if they jump out to a lead, they get the ball first. They put the pressure on Matthew Stafford. I think that they're going to win this football game. Just me. Steve says our crowd is crazy loud. Just when they would maintain that volume when Rams in the huddle usually gets loud when teams are on ball. Detroit 22 man can help. I totally agree with you. The crowd is going to play a huge factor. And if you're going to the game, you better be loud as hell. Because this team, we always say this all the time. Detroit Lions fans are crazy, right? But you have an impact on that field. No matter how much you don't think you have an impact. And look, tickets are crazy expensive. My hope and my feeling, and I hope to God I'm wrong, is that some of these people that can afford these damn tickets, they kind of sit on their hands. Because if you remember with the Red Wings, there was games where the ticket prices were so insane that we have guys like sitting on their hands, not being loud. Now, if you are one of those people, you need to get the hell up and leave and give your ticket to someone that could actually cheer. That's what I'm thinking. I haven't heard anything on Jerry Jacobs' release yet. He's still on the roster. I was talking to some beat reporters, and they were saying that he's still on the team. Let's see. Jennifer Smith says, you can see that Jared wants this win for the fans, but I know he would appreciate the win for himself. As fans, let's help him get that win. Look, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Jared Goff really wants this win. We want this win. But I think we can both agree that we want this win for Jared Goff. That's just my opinion. But that's what it is. All right, Tyler's here now, so no, he's not. He's gone. All right, well, guys, we're gonna end the podcast on this note because I don't know what happened to my slides. We'll add Tyler. All right, Tyler, you can we're probably gonna do a podcast on Saturday if you want. So
that's cool. Yeah, I just figured to hop in and kind of join in on the Lions playoff fun here.
Yep. All right.
But yeah, man, what's going on? Are you ready for this weekend or what? I'm feeling pretty good.
I'm feeling pretty good. I mean, it just is what it is, kind of thing. I think I want to see what's going to happen with the injuries. If Sam Laporta is going to be playing, if James Houston is going to be active, those are kind of things I'm looking at. But besides that, no.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm in a similar boat. I want to see who we're working with as far as personnel wise, but JMO's back, which is good news. So you got that deep threat. Interesting name I keep hearing thrown around is maybe the possibility of like signing a guy like Zach Ertz for the playoffs.
They're not gonna sign Zach Ertz, so that pipe dream can go away.
That's why Brad Holmes.
No, they're not signing Zach Ertz.
It's not ready to be serious because that would be a perfect move.
Well, here's the thing. Number one, you're not signing a tight end like Zach Ertz during the middle of the week. Just not. Like you're just not. Because if he's off the read of what Jared Goff wants and it's a pick six, there's no way in hell a GM would do that.
Yeah, like I said, that's a sign that he's not very serious because we have serious problems at tight end right now.
Well, Sam Laporta is probably going to play, but again, like I said, Tyler, it's not being serious. It's actually like the smart way to do it. Because if you bring a guy like Zach Ertz in and he runs the wrong route, and then the next thing you know, Jared Goff's throwing a pick six, guess who's going to be getting all the heat for that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, but when you throw out Laporta there too early and he blows his knee out for the rest of the year.
He has a hyperextended knee. Travis Kelce almost played after a day of his hyperextended knee.
Do you remember what? And I agree with you, but do you remember what happens when sometimes you play on weak knees, man? Like look at like Kevin Durant had a strained calf.
It's not the same thing though.
And 3 days later, he blew his Achilles out.
Yeah, it's not the same thing though. So
I don't know, man. I want to see it would have been nice to see us take a look at maybe a couple of veteran
They're
pieces.
not. I don't know why people thought that was actually like going to be a real thing.
I mean, and I'm hearing, hey, maybe we might sign Sue, which would, but it's like, hey,
okay. This is why we got to stop this stuff, man.
But again, Brett Holmes is very much these guys are our guys, and that's it kind of deal.
Well,
so,
how many teams do you see signing players right now? The Dolphins.
Yeah, I mean, but historically, I mean, it's happened quite frequently. I mean,
where
you get guys signed up for a like playoff run.
No, you don't. You sign them up earlier than this. You don't sign them up the week of the playoffs. Especially tight ends or wide receivers. You can't throw them in that bolt. Like, man, that'd be such a dumb decision by the Lions if they did that. Signing
get ready for tight end Dan Skipper, baby. Let's go.
Well, no, James Mitchell is perfectly fine. Ken Fisher says the same thing. Mitchell will do just fine. So that's gonna be it. So,
I mean, he had a nice catch last week, but the only thing that worries me about Mitchell is just he hasn't seen the field much. I mean, in his whole career, I think he's got less than 100 snaps.
Yeah, it's just something it's something you'll know. So
who you leaning towards Tutty wise here, man? You thinking more? We're gonna see the Monty show, or we're gonna see a little bit of Gibbs here? What's the deal? What's your thought on that? Heavy dose of Monty or what?
I think you'll see both. I haven't really made a decision on which way I'm gonna go. So that's why we're gonna do a Saturday podcast. So if you guys
take a look at everything.
If you guys are watching, we're gonna do a Saturday podcast. I was thinking about Sunday, but Sunday might be too kind of congested.
I'm worried, and I'm definitely down to break into this and break this down a lot. I want to kind of take a look at that and see what it looks like, especially final injury report, stuff like that. I mean, I know that they usually practice on Fridays, and usually a lot of stuff by at least by game time or usually the day before. But it's looking like our offensive line is healthy again, which is great. You got guys that are stepping up and playing good ball that'll help for depth, like Vildor. And Jet Campbell's looked really nice the last couple of weeks of the season. Yeah, man. So, the only thing I'm, kind of worried about is,
Yeah, we'll break this down on the Saturday podcast because I'm kind of running out of time. Mm-hmm. So I was going to cut it loose anyway. So we'll talk to you guys on the next podcast, Detroit Lions podcast. And if it'll probably be podcasted. So if you guys missed this episode, you can go to Spotify and Apple and everything. So thank you guys for watching. Thanks for coming on, Tyler. And then we'll see you Saturday because I think we'll know more then. So save your opinions for Saturday, Tyler.
Oh, I've got a few.